Hello, welcome to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Fantastic Fiction is a monthly speculative fiction reading series held on the third Wednesday of every month, hosted by Ellen Datlow and me, Matthew Kressel. We spotlight well-known and up-and-coming science fiction, fantasy, and horror authors, and admission is always free. We publish a monthly podcast and video so people who can't attend the in-person event can still enjoy the readings. If you'd like to support the series, you can donate at kgbfantasticfiction.org/support. Anyway, on to the show.
We're going to get started. How is everyone doing tonight? Welcome to Fantastic Fiction at KGB. My name is Matt Kressel. I co-host a series with Ellen Datlow. Fantastic Fiction at KGB is hosted on the second Wednesday of every month. It is always free. We never charge a cover. The only thing that we ask is that you buy a drink, hard or soft, and tip your bartender. Kelly! Let's give a hand to Kelly. Kelly is working hard to keep all of y'all hydrated. Please, please, please buy a drink, hard or soft. Tip Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly is one of my favorite bartenders that works here at the KGB bar. Kelly, you've been working here for a while. Forever.
I've always been the caretaker here.
She's, yes. And Lincoln, our bouncer outside. Lincoln, let's get a wave. We love Lincoln. Lincoln's been here for a while too, and we love the KGB bar, and thank you all for coming. So can I just get like a show of hands or an applause? It's the first time coming to Fantastic Fiction at KGB? Who's the first time? Welcome. Thank you. So for those of you who it's your first time coming, welcome. We have a website, Fantastic Fiction at KGBfantasticfiction.org is our website. We're on all the socials. Just follow Ellen and myself, and we don't spam you. We post 2-3 times a month about the upcoming readings. Ellen, you would like to do the upcoming list? Yes, I will not announce the upcoming readers. I will hand that off to Ellen. And we also have a podcast. So if you can't make the reading, kgbfantasticfiction.org or your favorite pod site, you can go on there and subscribe and listen to the readers. I'm super excited about our readers tonight. Some of our readers have read here before, and some of our readers have not. It's their first time, just like some of you. Our readers tonight are McLeod Chapman and Rebecca Fraimow. By the way, do we have books for sale? We do. Rebecca, do you have books? We both have books for sale. So at the break, what you could do is you could come up to the authors, you could buy a book and get them signed. And if you have books that you brought with you as well, you can get them signed. Rebecca Fraimow will be our first reader. Rebecca is the author of the science fiction romantic comedy Lady Eve's Last Con, a New York Times best romance novel of 2024. As well as the science fiction novella, The Iron Children. Rebecca has also published short stories in various venues, including the Hugo-longlisted Is New Gehesran Calling, and co-hosts the podcast 8 Days of Diana Wynne Jones with Emily Tesh. Rebecca also works as an audiovisual archivist, preserving the history of public television. She's married to fellow author Elizabeth Porter Birdsall and lives in Boston with a couple of extremely lucky black cats. Here's Rebecca Fraimow.
Hey everybody. That was a little closer than I intended. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Awesome. My name is Rebecca Fraimow. I'm going to be reading from my book, Lady Eve's Last Con. I do have a couple copies to sign. Given all the givens, rather than having them up for sale, I'm going to do it for suggested donation. So if you want to pitch $10 to Trans Lifeline or Ultra Lotto or an organization of that sort, let me know and I will hand them out until supplies run out. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this book, I'm reading from chapter 2 of my novel about a con woman who is attempting to con the interstellar billionaire who has dumped her baby sister and left her heartbroken. When this picks up, she's sort of about to launch onto a rather elaborate scheme to try and get his attention. So, running into Esteban Mendez-Yuki by convincing accident wasn't anywhere near as hard as you'd think. New Monte, which is the satellite she's on, is not exactly full of hustle and bustle. At least it isn't anymore. The satellite was built last century right next to the first ERB transit station, the Einstein-Rosen Bridge, that opened up the way for settlement in the Centauri system. There was a while there where nearly all trade going out of the solar system passed through New Monte before wending its way through the wormholes to the far reaches of the galaxy. Then those first expansion-era traders became trillionaires and quadrillionaires and had children and grandchildren whose jobs involved managing fortunes rather than making them. The junky trade ships coming through the ERB didn't generally make their first stops on New Monte anymore, but wealthy outer settlement visitors often did, hoping to get some face time with their corporate collaborators. The social scene became a hotspot for mergers and acquisitions made the old-fashioned way, and the hotter it all got, the more exclusive it became. Well, it's an old story. The rich get richer and the poor get priced out. Not that everyone's rich on New Monte, of course. Somebody's got to keep the life support running and the AI is bug-free. But if you don't count the cube formers, and the topside folks of New Monte never do count them, you can squeeze most of the satellite's full-time population into one oversized room. They go to each other's parties, they go to the anti-grav opera, they go to the space races until they fall over. Then every few weeks it's dark of the moon, and they catch up on all the sleep they missed while they were staying up all night playing Debs in Toyland. Visitors stay for months and write off their costs as networking expenses. If you want in with the elite, it's pay to play, and worth it to land a contract that ties you to any of the corporations that control what comes in and out of Earth's solar system, the glue that sticks the whole galaxy together. Esteban had ranted about the whole nonstop schedule to Jules in great detail, and she'd passed it on to me. Well, so that was how the other half lived. Pretty soon, Esteban would start wiggling on his father's hook, but he'd been away for long enough that right now I didn't think he could escape the regular parade. The night after the Mendez-Yuki party, there'd been a wine tasting event at the Krosolevsky Palace. The night after that, a Sphere concert. I'd skipped out on both of them, although not, I'd admit, completely sans qualm. I'd only ever heard the low-grade Sphere music you get on the big Lux liners, and I'd always wanted to compare it against the so-called superior art form. Still, Miss Evelyn Ojukwu wasn't the kind of girl who partied every night, and there was plenty of wine on Kepler and plenty of Sphere musicians. But there was no way a girl just in from Kepler was going to miss the season opener of the anti-grav opera, the pride of New Monte. If Esteban Mendez-Yuki was looking for me, and I was pretty sure I'd left it long enough that he'd be looking for me, he could reasonably expect to find me there, and I wasn't about to disappoint him. The show that night was some postmodern production about Icarus and Amelia Earhart. They sang at each other poignantly in broadcast English, subtitles in a sparrow trade, and zoomed around the stage like a couple of swallows. The story was nonsense, but the dancing was pretty good. Then intermission hit, and all the muckety-mucks immediately bobbled their floating boxes on over to chew the fat with the rest of the set. Half the audience looked ready to fall straight into the orchestra pit as they leaned over each other's balconies to bestow air kisses. Me, I didn't have a social set yet, so I just took advantage of all the shuffling to steer a course that would give me a little bit of a better view of the stage, as anybody would do. It also happened to bring me into the general vicinity of where Esteban sat solo and sullen in the Mendez-Yuki box, but who could have predicted that? Certainly not little Evelyn Ojukwu, who never even looked in her new friend's direction. She was too busy studying the grav-contained stage, the likes of which you'd never get out in the far systems. A vendor stopped by me and lifted a tray to show off the popcorn, chocolate, and booze he had for sale. I warned him off, though I felt like a drag doing it. Buying a bag of popcorn seemed about the least I could do, but I had a big scene coming up and I couldn't afford to have anything stuck in my teeth. The Runaway Opera Box is one of the oldest plays in the book, if you read that kind of book, but Esteban wasn't the genre-savvy type. When my box started bumping against the wall of the opera house behind him, with me clinging bravely to the balcony for dear life, he raced his own box straight over, just as if he'd read the role I'd written for him in the script. "Miss Ojukwu!" Mr. Yuki! I turned, eyes wide. My goodness, You've got to come away from there, said Esteban earnestly. It's not safe to have the box so close to the wall. You could damage the propulsors. All right, so he still had a few lines to learn. Esteban hadn't picked up on my perils. He just thought I couldn't drive. I'm trying, Mr. Yuki, I said patiently. I think the steering mechanism's stuck. Oh, said Esteban, I'm sure you've just not worked out the mechanism yet. If you just grip it firmly. I unclenched my jaw with an effort. I'm doing my best, Mr. Yuki, but it just doesn't seem to want to. The box dropped a good 6 feet in the air, and I let out a small scream. That wasn't even feigned. I'd only meant the box to drop 2 feet. Well, I never went to engineering school, and my sabotage hadn't been subtle. Esteban stared down at me, his mouth a round circle. He looked a perfect match for the gilded cherubs that clustered round the edges of the box. Miss Ojuku, he said, maybe you'd better get out of there. I gave a helpless little sway back against the plush velvet of the seat. If I had a way to get out, oh, I gasped as the box dropped another 5 feet. By this point, we'd gotten the attention of the rest of the opera-goers. People were starting to hover in close, plaster cupids knocking heads as the boxes jostled against each other. Nobody wanted to be the unlucky fellow who'd been too far back in the stalls to miss the real-life disaster at the opera. There wasn't going to be a disaster to me personally, of course. I'd dropped a fair chunk of change on the hover belt I was wearing under my gown to make sure the landing stayed smooth. But I'd already decided that the Ojuku opera box was an acceptable casualty. I clung nobly to the balcony of my box and took deep breaths. Where on earth is the manager? Fussed a middle-aged woman with a hat like an entire florist's window. Somebody ought to call the manager. I was willing to bet that somebody already had. I could see an official-looking person in a plain wooden box attempting to break in through the thicket of gold banisters. He didn't look like he was having much luck. Esteban, meanwhile, had finally gotten the right idea in his head and was slowly piloting his box to come down alongside mine. Hold on, Miss Ojuku! The box plummeted another 10 feet. The floor of the opera house was about 30 feet down from me now and approaching fast. Oh, please hurry, I said faintly, and slid my hand towards the hover belt at my waist. Before I could do much, though, I heard the sound of another motor roaring behind me, followed by the screech of a brake. I don't know why it is that little motors are always louder. The one that powered my behemoth of a box was practically a kitten purr next to this. I spun around and saw, well, of course it would be Esteban's sister, Sol Yuki. She'd somehow managed to commandeer one of the little air scooters that the popcorn vendors used and was hovering just an inch or two above the floor of my box. It must have taken some pretty fancy driving on her part. I hadn't even felt a jostle. Most people I know couldn't manage a manual, and certainly not most Debs. I wondered where she'd picked up the skill. She looked every inch the hero of the hour, and didn't she know it? Today's fancy suit even had a cape to it, which is the sort of thing that even the swellest of swells can only get away with at the opera. You'd better hop on board, she'd said, cool as a cucumber. I cast one last wistful look at poor, flailing Esteban and heaved an internal sigh. I didn't have any kind of an excuse to say no. I guess I better, I agreed, and hopped on up behind her. She cast me a slightly sidelong look. I think she'd been expecting me to get on in front of her, where there was a pretty secure spot between the seat and the concessions tray, but it was a strategic decision. If I was in front, there was a good shot she'd be holding onto my waist, and I didn't want any chance that she might notice the telltale bulk of the hover belt under the back of my gown. Of course, that meant that in order not to fall off the air scooter seat, which was really only designed for one person at a time, I had to not just grab onto her waist, but practically glue myself to her back. If she'd been my target, I'd have been taking my cue straight away to commence with the bodice heaving and remind her what kind of assets I really worked with. As it was, I was just glad her cape provided not only a decent level of cushioning between us, but a relatively safe array of fabric to grab onto. Just as the air scooter kicked off again, the opera box that I'd been in gave a shuddering jolt and dropped the rest of the way to the mosaic floor. I craned my neck to watch it fall. I won't lie, it gave me a case of the heebie-jeebies. I would have been fine with the hover belt, probably, but it wouldn't have been pleasant, and the worst part would have been knowing it was my own damn fault. Too cocky by half, my sister would say, and she would have been right. You're all right, said Sol Yuki in front of me. She didn't turn around, but she must have felt me shiver even through all the layers of that nonsense cape. You were lucky, though. Unlucky, you mean, I said. Lucky, said Sol, that I was there. I stifled a snort. What a peacock she was. Still, under the circumstances, I guess I couldn't say that she was wrong. We pulled up onto the side of a walk-along balcony. She dismounted in one smooth motion that gave the concessions air scooter the borrowed panache of a classical motorbike, and then held out a hand to help me do the same. "I bet that no one ever accused you of false modesty, Sol Mendez-Yuki," I said, and smiled at her. I meant that smile to be devastating. It always helps if it's genuine. But I'll admit I'm grateful for the rescue. I saw her blink once before bowing over my hand, so I couldn't see her eyes anymore. Then Esteban came pelting up to us, having parked his own box right alongside. "Miss Ojuku, are you all right?" "I'm fine," I said, and gave him a brave little smile, which, in my professional opinion, wasn't anything like half as good as the one I'd sent towards his sister. But he'd missed his cue so badly it was hard for me to muster up much enthusiasm. At least I got the whole first act in, though I suppose I won't be coming back to the anti-grav opera anytime soon without a box. "If you ask me, the whole thing's an awful waste of time anyway," said Esteban, which wasn't what I was hoping for. But then he added, "But of course, if you don't want to miss the end, you're welcome to join us in our box. There's plenty of room, and we'd be glad to have you." "Don't feel you have to say yes in order to avoid giving offense," said Sol. She was still holding my hand, all solicitousness. "Nobody would blame you for not wanting to get right back in an opera box." "My mother always said the only thing to do after falling off a horse was to get right back on," I said. Sol cocked an eyebrow. "Horse?" "An herbivorous quadruped," said Esteban. "Terra native. People used to use them for transit. A quaint expression, but a noble sentiment." Excuse me. "Very noble," said Sol. "Still, martyring yourself to discomfort seems excessive under the circumstances." I made a mental note that if anyone ever asked, I should tell them that Evelyn Ojuku's mother... Thank you. One moment. Mother had grown up on Earth like mine. Out loud, I said, "It'd be a shame to spend the rest of my life afraid of opera boxes, and I'm sure I'd be much less frightened to get back into one if I was with the two of you, rather than on my own or with strangers." I looked up at Sol innocently through my lashes. "I've got proof the Mendez-Yuki won't let anyone fall on their watch." There wasn't much Sol could say to that, short of telling me she didn't want me in the box, which would make her look like a real bore, and it seemed that Don Juan of New Monte wasn't ready to look boorish. So when the curtain went up on the second act, there I was, exactly where I wanted to be, sandwiched between the Mendez-Yuki siblings and having a grand old time. Esteban even bought me chocolate, which at this point I felt I had earned. Sol waited until the middle of the first aria to lean down and murmur, "Still, it's a little peculiar, isn't it, the box failing like that so suddenly and so close to us?" "Pardon?" I said. "Sol," hissed Esteban, "Miss Ojuku has expressed an interest in seeing the end of the show?" "My apologies," said Sol, but the glance she shot my way told me she didn't buy for a moment that I hadn't heard. The opera ended with a standard hot earth metaphor, with Icarus flying Amelia Earhart right into the star at the center of the Sol system and everything going up in flames. The plot might have been hackneyed, but the fireball was a stunt and a half. I was glad Evelyn Ojuku was supposed to be a rube who'd never seen a thing like this before, so I didn't have to worry about letting my mouth hang open a little. When I finally dragged my attention away from the stage, I found Sol Mendez-Yuki watching me. I blinked at her, and she smiled. "Seemed like you liked the show all right, Miss Ojuku." "That obvious?" I blushed and glanced from one Mendez-Yuki to the other. "I guess it's old news to the two of you, huh? It's probably not fashionable to look so impressed." Sol laughed. "Fashionable's not fashionable. If everyone does the done thing, that just makes the done thing dull as ditch water." "I'd much rather spend time with a person who's genuine," said Esteban with emphasis. For a moment, the two of them looked awfully alike. The corner of my mouth twitched downwards. I knew what Esteban really meant when he said genuine. I knew who he was talking about. I could hear the stiff-necked hurt lurking at the back of his voice. He told me the other night he wanted something outside of his own gilded world, something real. But when he'd had it, he'd tossed it straight in the trash. For all his sister's grandstanding chivalry, she probably would have done just the same in his place. She was a Deb, after all, born and raised in New Monte, and people like that didn't think people like me were really people at all. I ducked my head. Let them think I was embarrassed at the compliments. Let them think I was shy. Sol laughed and took the controls to navigate the opera box into the line for the lobby. Esteban said, "Miss Ojukwu, I'll be the first to tell you the opera doesn't mean much to me. It's just one of the things we're expected to do. But it means a little bit more watching you get so much out of it. It'll take a while for them to fix your box, won't it? Why not just use ours for the rest of the season?" "Oh, I couldn't possibly impose like that," said I, of course. "Oh, it wouldn't be an imposition," said Esteban, of course. "It would be my pleasure, my genuine pleasure." I worked up another blush. "Well, if you're certain, but I won't just pop in any time, I promise. I wouldn't want to get in the way of a family party, or if you were bringing a special friend, anything like that." "There's nobody like that," said Esteban with emphasis. He took my hand. I let him do it, raising my eyes up to his face. "Well, if you'll pardon me, Miss Ojukwu, I might be so bold as to say I hope that might be changing soon." Evelyn Ojukwu might be naive about the opera, but she'd grown up in the elite circles of Kepler. She knew how to handle herself in a situation like this. I took my hand back, holding his gaze. "That is a little bold, Mr. Mendez-Yuki." Esteban swallowed. "I hope I've not offended you in saying, only that I'd like to spend more time with you, Miss Ojukwu, and—" "You haven't offended me," I said slowly. I waited just long enough to let him squirm for a bit, and then I smiled. "I suppose I wouldn't mind spending a little bit more time with you either, Mr. Mendez-Yuki. You've been making up for first impressions in spades." It was slow going back through the lobby towards the exit. Nearly every person we brushed against had to stop and tell me how frightened they'd been for my welfare, and how glad they were that I'd come to no harm. In all the hustle and bustle, I almost didn't notice when Sol stopped short. Her gaze was locked on someone across the lobby, someone who, from her face, she didn't expect to see and didn't want to see either. The person bowed his head and politely doffed his breathing mask to Sol. When he straightened again and I got a look at his face, I found myself feeling pretty much the same way she looked. Albert Alonso is the right-hand man of a certain individual whose name it's not good safety practice to bandy around too much. Actually, the individual in question's got so many right-hand men out doing his dirty work for him that you could easily mistake him for an octopus. Still, Albert takes a certain pride in his job description, and I've got no call to quibble, though if you ask me, he's less of a hand than an elbow, kind of a blunt instrument. Albert turning up usually means bad news for somebody. His gang might call themselves the Terran Original Undertakers, but these days they're involved in just about every shady scheme between here and the Beta Z asteroid belt. However, before Jules and I went into business for ourselves, we didn't have the chance to be particularly choosy about our company, so I knew old Albert reasonably well. He was a decent enough fellow in his own way, polite to widows and orphans when it wasn't in his job description to be otherwise, but I wouldn't say this was the time or place I would have chosen to run into an old friend. I only had to hope that if he recognized me, he'd have the sense not to show it here. I turned my eyes away just in time to encounter Sol Mendez-Yuki's gaze, narrowed and suspicious and set on me. I gave her a faint smile and fanned myself with my breather. "My goodness, I'm afraid the crush is affecting me more than I'd realized. Do you think we could get to the door?" And I'm going to stop there. Thank you all so much.
We'll be back in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Have a drink, relax, talk to each other, and we'll be back. Kelly has to turn off the music. Hi there. Oops, sorry. Here she comes. Hello. Hi. Hello, everybody. Hello, you. Shh. Okay. We're back. We're back. Shh. Good. Thank you. That's Kelly. Please tip her well. Anyway, welcome back. Before we have our next guest, I'm going to tell you who's going to be reading in the next several months. March 12th, we have Victoria Dalp and Jedediah Berry. April 9th, we have Ursula Witcher and Andrea Hairston. May 14th, we have Carol Geisander, who is here someplace, and Darryl Gregory. June 11th, we have David Surface and Christopher Barzak. July 9th, we have John Kessel and Caitlin Rozakis. August 13th, we have Deborah Every. I think I spelled it right. Is that right? Oh, thank you. And Cassandra Koa. September 10th, we have Shiva Kumar and Fran Wild. And October 8th, we have Liana Renee Heber and Shveta Thakra. Thakra, right. Okay, so we're booked quite far in advance. So, in the meantime, our next guest is McLeod Chapman, who writes, I can't see and read at the same time. It's like, oh, that's better. Thank you. Nope. I can't do this. All right, okay. Here, that's all right. Hold it, please. Yeah, I can hold it. You know what? McLeod Chapman writes books, comic books, young adult and middle grade books, as well as for film and television. His most recent novels include Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, What Kind of Mother, and Ghost Eaters. Please welcome McLeod Chapman.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. There are 2 seats available that were not there before, so if there are 2 people standing who would want to take them, this is your moment. This is the moment. Do it. Go for it. There. Yay! My name is Clay. I really appreciate you all coming out tonight. It's February, it's cold. So yeah, I'm gonna read from a new book that I wrote called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. Came out almost a month ago now. It is, just imagine half of the country is possessed by demons. I started writing this in 2022, and it came out on January 7th. I'm going to read really deep into the book. There's no spoilers in this book. It is what it is. I guess the only thing you need to know up front is that there is a guy. His name is Noah. His parents have stopped communicating with him because they are now possessed by demons. And this is 5 minutes into the apocalypse. And I guess that's it. That's all I'm going to say. The rest we'll figure out, okay? Here we go. Good afternoon. Anderson Cooper here, reporting to you live. Startling news today as multiple incidents of random violence erupting across the country continue to pour in. We have some disturbing footage we would like to share with you tonight. We want to warn everyone at home about its unnerving nature. If there are children watching, please, parental discretion is advised. What you're seeing seems to be happening everywhere, all across the country. These riots have no reason. If they are in fact protests, we have yet to be told what they are for. There is simply too much conflicting information coming in for us to say with any certainty what the root cause of these heinous acts may be. We simply do not know. We are still waiting to hear from our nation's leaders on what is happening. For those of you watching at home, we advise you to stay inside, lock your doors, and shelter in place. Do not, we repeat, do not engage with anyone else. This includes your neighbors, perhaps even members of your own family. I just don't know what else to say. Stay safe, America. How was that? Did I do pretty good? That is, okay. Woo! Suffice to say, Noah Fairchild, the great reawakening is finally here, and you are nowhere near prepared to deal with it, you soft-skinned, sniveling little snowflake. This is what you get for spending the entirety of your adult life living within some blissfully ignorant, liberal bubble, sheltered from any shit hitting the fan. I mean, look at you now, huh? La-di-da-di-da, little libtard, standing in a shitstorm without an umbrella. You are simply not equipped for this. Any of this. It was only when you turned on the TV and realized that this was happening all across the country, everywhere, that your mind finally decided to shatter. I mean, it's pretty commendable that you held on to your sanity for this long. I mean, kudos to you, kiddo. Really. Your brain just needs a break. You know, hey, let's hand the remote control over to the professionals, all right? Let's let our mental faculties take a breather, okay? Who amongst us can pilot us through the apocalypse, Anderson motherfucking Cooper! That's who! Yeah! In the face of every horror happening, your mind adopts this cloyingly liberal coping technique. You now have my calm, cool voice guiding you through the carnage. I am sitting in the news desk in your mind, broadcasting from your brain, reporting on this late-breaking chaos as it unspools before you. My nuanced tone allows you to take in the madness, process it, because that's what old Coop does. Am I right? When the shit hits the fan, oh, I am there, keeping it cool, keeping it calm, keeping it together as I tell you what the ever-living fuck is going on. I am your trusted news source in the midst of the world going to shit. I'm honored, frankly, that your fragmented mind would pick me. Thanks, Noah. Really. It's just you and me, pal. We're gonna get through this mess together. Just simply sit back and try to survive, okay? Because let's be a little honest with ourselves here, okay? You are so fucked right now. Oh, how are we going to get back? How are we going to skedaddle back to Brooklyn, huh? How are we going to get to our wife and kids? How are we going to return to our little liberal enclave of Park Slope, where we can regale our fellow turtleneck sweater-wearing brethren of all the awful conditions of the red states? Oh, I was barely lucky enough to get out of there alive. I mean, I did my damnedest to deprogram my parents, but by the time I arrived, it was already too late. We are already monsters, possessed by their programming. How, Noah? How? Just try, okay? Just try and survive. You can cross the Mason-Dixon alive and in one piece again. I got all the faith in the world, pal. You can do this. Shall we try? Yeah? Okay, just breathe in a little bit for me, okay? Okay, on your marks, get set. Go! You immediately leap outside the front door of your parents' house for the first time since you arrived, gasping for air. You instantly wince from the afternoon sun. Your knee-jerk response is to wail. Just let it all out. All that pent-up panic. The downright dread of it all comes unspooling from within you. Chest relenting, unraveling in one long, drawn-out wail. Ah!
Others answer back.
The neighborhood is alive with screams. You step back. What the fuck? You've entered into a world you no longer recognize. The world you knew before? The one that was held together by like a social contract and laws? Yeah. The one held together by a paper-thin skin of morality, of humanity? Yeah. That world no longer exists. Not anymore. It's theirs now. All theirs. Who are they? I don't know. I know just as much as you do, pal. Okay. You hear screams, not just one shriek, but several, too many to pinpoint. The neighbors are yelling, high-pitched howls rise up from all around, spilling out from broken windows, women's voices, men's, all of them pleading, crying, wetly bellowing in bloody murder. None of this makes sense. What the hell is going on here? What the fuck is going on? I'm trying to tell you, pal. Just listen to your old guy Coop, okay? Like, people are panicking, losing their shit everywhere. A discordant chorus seeps out from the suburbs, and you're still trying to make sense of it all, rationalize it somehow, but you can't. Abandon all rational thought. Now, hurry. I mean, you just left the insanity inside your own parents' house when all of a sudden you're The squeal of tires suddenly seizes your attention. An Audi weaves over the road. Drunk driver, obviously. Hey, this guy is speeding far too fast for a residential neighborhood. I mean, children play in these streets. Kids, for Christ's sakes. I mean, if Mr. Look, there. See? A man, a jogger, maybe, is running right down the middle of the road. Seems like an odd time to be out for some exercise, what with the world ending and all. But hey, you do you. I mean, if Mr. Audi doesn't watch where he's going, he's going to run into... Oh! Holy shit! Mr. Jogger folds right under the fender. You watch his body disappear under the wheel well. His right ankle bends at such a painfully severe angle, it's left the rest of his leg looking like a hairy question mark. Holy shit, hit and run. We have just witnessed a hit and run. What do we do, Noah? What the fuck do we do? Call 911. Really? 911. Don't you think that we've already gone beyond 911 now? You are too slowly catching on to the fact that all of these systems are collapsing at this very second in real time. Your brain keeps insisting that the safety nets of society are still there, still holding you up from utter failure, still protecting you. But it is just now dawning on you that it is simply not true, isn't it? I mean, there's got to be some, scrap of your mind, some lingering liberal lizard brain that is screaming to you, there are no safety nets! Not anymore! Not for you! Wake up, Noah! Get your ass moving! The Audi weaves, leaving trails of blood pockmarking the pavement. That car's not going to stop. Not for you. Not for anyone. Not anymore. I mean, so what do? I mean, it just weaves over the lane. This driver is obviously blitzed beyond any breathalyzer test when all of a sudden, oh, what the fuck? Where did that Hyundai come from? What the fuck is happening here? The rending of metal tears the air open. Glass shatters. Our drunken Audi driver emerges from the windshield like a butterfly crawling out from his cocoon. He is in the air. Look at him go. Watch him fly. Oh, no, sorry. He is down. The driver lands on your parents' lawn, face first, skidding over the grass until coming to a complete stop right at your feet. What the fuck? You haven't moved. Nothing in your body works. You simply stand there, holding your breath like it's the last gasp of oxygen you're ever going to hold on to. Your ass cheeks clenched in a panicked pucker. I mean, you can't believe what you've just witnessed. I mean, it's like this personalized horror movie made for an audience of one. You, Noah, it's all for you. And it is playing out in excruciatingly painful detail until your mind can't fire off a single command. Your fight or flight response has failed. All systems down. This driver's not moving. I mean, he's got to be dead, right? Why are you asking me? I don't know. I mean, he's not breathing. I mean, clearly he's got to be dead. Well, why don't you check if you're so curious, okay? Little Coop here will wait, okay? Just give him a little love tap or something. And you stare down at his inert body. By the time that your mind suggests that you lean in and see if he's still breathing. No! He gasps. He flops over onto his back, sputtering. Oh, wet. Your face feels wet. Blood. Oh, there's blood in your mouth. Oh, it's in your eyes. It's dribbling down your nose. Oh, you think Ebola. You think Hep C. You think COVID. I mean, you think about some new kind of virus, something that doesn't even have a name yet. The CDC hasn't whipped up a kick-ass code word for whatever this guy's got, and it is seeping through your skin into your bloodstream, and you are done for. No. So fucking done. It's zombified before the apocalypse even began. So you just stand there, holding your arms out, just waiting for the moment before you become one of them. But nothing happens. Nothing at all. You're alive. For now. Mr. Audi is barely alive. He's like bald in a friar tuck kind of way, purple sweatsuit. He keeps coughing these blackened gouts of blood and hacking, arcing spurts, and they land back into his face. And it kind of reminds you of like a neglected water fountain, the spigot all gummed up with algae. Hey, you can help this man. You can. I mean, just hold on to your humanity for just a little bit longer and help your fellow brother in need. I mean, all you got to do is just lean over and, oh, a woman barges out from the front door of her own home across the street. She is wearing nothing but a silk bathrobe, open, fanning at her shoulders like it's some kind of like cape super soccer mom or the caped carpooler. She is charging right at you, breasts swinging, mouth foaming, eyes holding onto that same distorted stare your parents had. What's wrong with her? Is she sick too? Why? You instinctively step back, forgetting all about your broken man at your feet, in suddenly backstepping up the front steps of your parents' house, hands held out in a placating gesture, hold it, suddenly wondering if maybe it's safer inside. Let's just go back in, close the door, lock it, and wait this one out, just until it blows over. This woman scales the fresh wreckage of the car wreck on all fours, leaping up into the air until, she pounces on Mr. Audi. She takes his head into her hands and starts studying it, like scrutinizing it, much like one would like look at a piece of fruit at the grocery store, whether or not they wanted to buy it. She clearly does not care for what condition this particular piece of fruit is in, because she starts smashing it against the ground over and over again until, the rind breaks. The nose snaps. Fuck me! The jaw snaps open and fresh fruity pulp comes pouring out all over the lawn. Now that this guy's skull is open, now that there's fresh gunk going over the grass, now this woman starts eating. She really digs her teeth in there too, running her tongue along the fresh fissure of his cranium. And when she reels her head back, she tears off his nose. This elicits a short retort from you. Ow! As if, all you're capable of doing anymore of these like slight, outbursts of exasperation. It's a typical liberal defense response and when the world is going to shit. This woman, middle-aged, short-cropped hair, she spits his nose at you, and it lands at your feet as if she's wanting to share, and she starts barking in these rabid outbursts like some kind of like seal, just the facts. This is interesting. This just in. We are receiving some new information here, and well, it would appear that we are dealing with some fucked up shit. Facts news brain. This is spreading. This is communicable. Mad cow disease for conservatives. I mean, it totally makes sense. It is just now dawning on you that this is happening everywhere, to everyone, all across the country. Thanks to your old pal Coop. Or maybe just half of it. Wah, wah. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, KGB bar. Tip your waiter. Oh, I brought a handful of books. I got some books.
Wake up and open your eyes. Go back to sleep. I will later.
Well, that was pretty stunning. If that's your first introduction to Clay's work, welcome. A lot of it's like that. He's a really good performer of it, too. Anyway, relax, hang out, have another drink, buy some books, or I think Rebecca's you're going to donate for Rebecca's books. Please come back next month and bye.
You have been listening to the Fantastic Fiction at KGB reading series. Check out our website at kgbfantasticfiction.org and click on support if you'd like to help keep the series going. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening and see you next month.